So, before we start the episode, just wanted to give a shout out to Anchor.fm, for hosting our podcast. And I want to give a shout out, especially to Spotify and to Apple Podcasts. Love their hosting channels. So, with that being said, I want to remind you, for my listeners, please rate and review us 5 stars only. You could go on there. That helps the show a lot so it can get spread and recognized. And we really would appreciate it. So that's it. Just quick shout out, and please, on your device, whatever you use to listen to podcasts, please rate and review us. Like I said, 5 stars only the best. So with that being said, let's start the show. I'm Luis Agustin, and this is A View to Film. All right. So, welcome back to A View to Film. My next guest is a Penn State alum, a huge dog lover, and my favorite, a cigar aficionado. Please welcome Mr. Jacob Whitling. Jake, what's up?
Not much. How's it going?
You drinking anything tonight?
So I've got a little bit of a double fist to go in here. I have a True Believers double IPA from Twin Elephant, so I want to shout them out in Chatham, New Jersey.
Oh, shout outs.
Also, they've been sustaining me this entire pandemic, so I'm gonna hand it to them. And also a little small glass of single barrel Four Roses, so some whiskey.
All right, man. All right. Hey, good for you, bro. Good for you. I'm only gonna give a shout out to some to the kombucha companies out there. I had some Dr. Brew. But besides that, no more shout outs for me. I'm not drinking today. Just some water for me. But yeah, brother. So what movie did you choose to talk about today?
So I chose to talk about The Graduate, starring Dustin Hoffman.
Before we even talk about anything else, I want to give a spoiler warning. Now that we've issued that, why don't you tell me in your own words, why do you love this movie so much, and why did you pick it?
So actually, the first time that I watched The Graduate was in a Com 150 class at Penn State. So it was you met on Tuesdays, talked about film theory and film in general, and then you'd watch a movie on Thursdays. So it's kind of just like an easy A. But you got exposed to a lot of early films that I never would have probably seen before. A lot of Charlie Chaplin and a lot of films in the early 1900s. So this was one of the films that was shown, and I think as a early 20-year-old, it was kind of one that you gravitate towards, especially in the beginning, because you kind of have that sense of, what am I going to do next? Like, I have no idea after I leave.
That's very true. That's very true.
So it's kind of always been kind of a lasting impression, especially if you're ever just trying to figure out your next phase. And I think everyone can kind of relate to just being a little lost here and there.
That's true. I'm going to be brutally honest. The first time I saw this movie, this was a while back too, but it was more in my later 20s. I didn't see this in my younger 20s. And now, like, on rewatching it more frequently, I can see that more because I've been doing a lot more, like with this podcast, trying to get to know more movies, right? The thing is that I didn't really like this movie the first time I saw it, and like halfway through, I kind of was like dozing off, like, oh, all right. Like, no, for real. Like, I'm not even lying. Like, I was never a big fan of this movie. And now until recently, until you brought it up and said, like, hey, why don't we cover this movie? I was like, all right, you know what? I'll check it out again. And like, now I'm like, wait a second. Like, to me, what I really appreciate, and I do want to shout this out, is the fact that you have that, like, kind of like that PTSD, right? Like that post-graduation depression, right? Like, all right, what am I going to do? Like, where's my life going? And it's about, like you said, like, where do I go from here? And I can take myself back to that time where I'm like, wow, like, I really relate to this character, to Ben. When we all graduate, you feel like very lost. You don't know what to do. Nobody tells you nobody gives you like the blueprint, right?
Yeah, and not only do they not give you the blueprint, but and as you can see with Ben very early on, when he tries to talk about the way that he's feeling, and explain that he has no idea really what's next, everyone just tries to laugh it off, like, "Hey, you're young, you're in your prime of your years. Stop worrying about it. Just enjoy it." And it's something that he can't bring himself to do.
And then I love how, like, what was it, his neighbor who was already pitching him like ideas like, yo, you want to get into plastics?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like plastic. Think about it. Are you thinking about it? Think about it. Good. It's a done deal.
Come-
As if he already had some job lined up for Ben. And he just like they just shook on it on the spot as he's trying to, not enjoy his graduation party and slink away to his room.
that plastic scene, I'm like, wait, what do you mean, bro?
Yeah.
Like, am I gonna be selling the plastic? Am I investing?
Especially when
uh,
you frame it during the era too, right? It's 1967. Like I don't even know what the
right.
reference is. What is plastics?
Bro, the other thing I wanted to give a huge shout out to, and I have to throw a plug out there, is the soundtrack of this movie. Watching it again today, I'm not even lying to you, bro. The Simon and Garfunkel, like, especially the song Scarborough Fair, like in the middle of the movie when they're like rocking out to it,
Hmm.
like I literally had to go look at the album. Was like, holy shit, like arguably this is one of the best movie soundtracks I have heard. What do you think about the songs?
So I mean I agree with you. I feel like one of the first times, like I said, when I first watched the movie, I really feel like that also struck a chord with me. And if a movie's got a really great soundtrack, it just really kind of keeps you going.
Hmm.
Another movie that I really love is Dirty Dancing. Funny enough, but that soundtrack for Dirty Dancing, like it's just timeless. And
Yes.
you almost any song that hits you, you have some sort of nostalgia attached to it, and that's what helps draws you, in.
Let's transition into the movie, right? One of my biggest pet peeves with this film, and maybe it's due to the fact of what year it came out, was the fact of like the age gap between Ben and Mrs. Robinson, right? But in real life, it was just so small. Like Dustin Hoffman was literally her age pretty much, like only 6 years apart. Like that to me threw me way off. Like even watching it now. Like what did you think about that?
Huh. So I didn't know that, and I knew that in the movie they're supposed to be, twice. She's twice his age, but they do not look 6 years apart when you're watching it. Although I don't think he was believable at 20.
No, exactly.
I'm like, yeah, like I could get like maybe 24 or 5, but 20 is
Right.
a strong stretch.
Right, exactly. And it's not on and I looked up the name. It's Anne Bancroft. So
Bankrupt.
not on Anne. They whatever they did with the makeup was
Mhm.
phenomenal. They made her really like look a little bit older. But man, is yo, your boy Dustin Hoffman, man. He just has had the same look for ages.
He's like Paul Rudd, just he's got. I mean, Dustin Hoffman's looking a little older now, but there's
Right,
certainly
yeah.
where he just you never thought the guy was ever aging.
Exactly. But here's something I wanted to throw at you because I was thinking about this. I think that also what I do appreciate is how great of an actor Dustin Hoffman is because like of the awkward faces that he puts, especially like in the first scene when he gets trapped, right? Like he's like, "Oh my god, no, what are you doing?" Right? And my question to you is, and I don't know if you ever thought about this, if you had, right, I imaginary you had to do a remix, like right, a reboot of The Graduate, who would you cast in the Dustin Hoffman Ben role?
Oh wow, Michael Sarah.
Nice. That is, bro. Literally not lying. I wrote that down, and then I also wrote down a backup. I don't know if you could guess it.
Oh, your backup. No, Michael Sarah was like first and foremost the one that popped in. Who'd you have?
Jesse Eisenberg.
Ah, that's a good one too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that. That was something I was thinking about because I'm like, yo, Michael Cera would be perfect
He
for a
just
role like this.
especially like when you think about when he was in, like super bad, like he
Right.
had that awkward timing down where he can come across as it's very believable and just the expressions themselves. Yeah, I think if you redid it, he would be a good fit. Plus, he like never ages either.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Like
It
he
would,
still
bro.
looks like he could play any high schooler or early college kid if you needed to put him in a set.
100%. Bro, I'm telling you, we're gonna copyright this. Like that's it. It's official out there.
all good work in Hollywood is just being things redone.
Why not? Bro, how old is this movie? In the 60s? Like it's time, man.
53.
Look at that.
Yeah,
Like
so I mean, you're throwing out a spoiler alert, but literally anyone who's listening to this, you've had your entire life to watch the movie. It's been out that long.
I mean, hey, listen, if they haven't seen it by now, then whatever, it's up to them. So then here's my next question. Who would you recast as Mrs. Robinson?
Um, I'm gonna say Anne Hathaway.
Oh wow, look at that. It's a good pick. So I couldn't think of anybody because I was like, man, I don't know who can play the same way Anne did, right? For
Right.
Mrs. Robinson. Like nobody. And even the actors I found. So here's what they suggested online was Amy Adams
Yeah, I could
and
kind of see that, but I don't know.
and Charlize Theron.
Yeah, that's closer.
That's closer, right?
Yeah, than Amy Adams for sure.
Yeah, but Amy Adams was like the first hit.
I don't know. I don't. For me, I don't necessarily see it
Yeah.
only because I think Charlize Theron has more of that like you get that more dominating like facial expression
Mm-hmm.
as
Mm-hmm.
someone who's going to take charge in a situation and because like think about in the beginning of the movie, right? Mrs. Robinson, she's like forcing him basically into his choices,
Right.
like never gives him any leeway out of the situation. She's constantly like, look at me, Ben. Do you think I'm trying to seduce you? Do you want me to seduce you? Is that something you would like? Like, she just keeps asking these questions, probing him to the answer. And I think she would be a good role for, kind of looking intimidating, but also not coming across as such.
What so in this day and age, when is the moment that we consider her non-consent like approach inappropriate?
So it is interesting when you look at it in the context of like the 21st century, right?
That's right.
Because you watch it now, and like my wife watched it with me when I was rewatching it, and she's like, I don't understand why you like this movie. This lady, this woman's clearly like taking like advantage of him, and because he's impressionable, and she knows what she's doing, and it's disgusting. And I'm like, well, in the context of when the movie was made, right? It's the '60s. It's
Right.
it's it's different. It's not your it's not it wasn't normal at the time. Now you look at it and you're thinking, I don't know if they would greenlight this. They might. So yeah, that's I would say like pretty early on. If you watch it now, you're like, yeah, no, like she's clearly a predator.
So then in the middle of the movie, she kind of calls out his manhood, right? And then he feels challenged. Like so then she's trying to seduce him without seducing him. But then he finally bends to her will when she challenges him. What did you think about that part? That's what I wanted to ask you.
Well, I mean, listen, he has that masculinity about him, right? Like that's the '60s. I mean, that's what a man is.
Hmm.
So she calls him out, and he feels challenged. He feels some type of way. Um, that's when I think it kicks in for him. Like he's doing this. Like this is what he has figured out that he's gonna fill his free time with. Right? Like he obviously hasn't been doing anything up until that point, and I feel like in a certain way, like I think that's kind of what she was hoping for, right? I mean, she's not she's in a sexless marriage, by her own admission. And so I kind of feel like she does all of the dominating in the beginning, courting him, grooming him, right? And but she, I think, wants someone to take the reins, and that's kind of the way that she gets off.
If she wants somebody to take the reins, but this guy is literally timid, doesn't know what he's doing, and like I was mentioning before, that like that bedroom scene where you see all the
Right.
flash cuts and like she's offering herself and she's like, yo, bro, like, whenever you need, like whenever you need, I'm just letting you know, right? It's kind of like, all right, like why keep continue attacking this person when his personality, it doesn't seem like that in the beginning of the movie,
Predators,
right?
I think predators like the game though, right? Like that's if it's too easy, that's not fun. Part of it is trying to, you've spent all of this time trying to get this person to do what you want. You're going to continue to push the button, even if they're timid. You're going to find the ways that they respond to, and you're going to poke and prod
Very
until
true.
they finally give in to what you want. And then that's where the satisfaction comes, right? Because she knows in the end, then she finally won, and that's what you're chasing. That's the adrenaline rush you're trying to get.
I agree with you. And then I also did want to mention something, like a little trivia, something random that I brought up. I'm not sure if they brought up this in your class, but I did want to mention that you said how like maybe this year it wouldn't something like this wouldn't be made. But I do want to point out that there was Hays Code back then. And that's where in the North American Hollywood cinema, like they wouldn't really find these sexual kind of movies out there. Does that make sense? So that's why the director was using those flash cuts, like of showing something, but not really showing that. This was kind of like that first movie that we saw that in Hollywood.
Where they weren't like being very explicit, but they
Yeah,
were.
exactly where they were not being very explicit. So this movie kind of like set the new age and the new tone after the 60s.
I guess I probably haven't seen too much before this, but and what I have watched and what I've watched since, it's interesting to see that they were toying with how close they could get to the edge without
Yes.
necessarily getting that. Because I don't think it didn't get an R rating, right? Or were ratings even a thing? I can't even remember when ratings were invented.
Um, they no, well, they did have ratings, but back then it was either just PG or R. There wasn't like
Right.
a PG-13, or there wasn't.
You
It
had
was
like
very limited.
an R was pretty easy to obtain too, right?
Correct, exactly,
Like today, what we think of as like PG-13 would have been closer to R.
exactly. And look, I googled it. It was PG. It was PG.
That's
See,
actually
there you go.
interesting. That was PG, and you've got some of those flash cuts in there. So can you
Oh,
imagine parental guidance? You're taking your 8-year-old to go watch The Graduate.
I can't.
Be like, hey Johnny, we're gonna go get some popcorn, and you're gonna see what it's like to be a man today.
So problematic. So since you mentioned about like the age thing, like when you have kids, when is it going to be appropriate for you to show them The Graduate?
Probably, honestly, I think in your teens, and only
Okay,
because I think there's some nuances in there that like you're not gonna pick up if you're a little younger. But I don't find the movie particularly like edgy or uncomfortable. It would just be
that's right.
you're gonna understand it a little bit more. And then maybe it would be a springboard for them when they are in college. Maybe they have some self reflection and they're like, you know what? I'm like Ben Braddock. I have no idea what I want to do with my life.
Exactly. No, I agree with you, man. I think that, especially like if you're in your late teens, you should see this.
Yeah,
It's very telling, and it's very besides obviously the inappropriate sexual stuff. Like everything else is pretty accurate to how you would feel.
it's also kind of humorous getting into your 30s now and watching a movie and then thinking about having kids and trying to figure out what's inappropriate sexual stuff when For so long, you're like, "Wow, I'm not gonna be that person who shields people away," and then you're like, "Yeah, on second watch, I don't know if I want my kids to know what sexual predators are like."
They need to know, man. They need to know because they need to protect themselves.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah. All right. So you ready to jump into some favorites of ours?
Let's go.
All right, let's do it. So, what is your favorite quote of the movie? How about we start there?
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me, aren't you? I mean, it's it's delivered perfectly because he's so nervous and he's trying to figure it out. He starts to figure it out. And, obviously if you know a bit of the plot, you know what's like happening, and he delivers it, and she's just flat out, no, I'm not. And I think, the way that it's delivered, right? It's that shot of her propped up in the chair with the leg
Hmm.
perfectly, with, you're looking under the leg at his face as he slowly realizes, oh my God, she wants me and I don't know what to do next.
I I googled because I was very curious about that. That's like on the American Film Institute. That's the number 63 most quoted line in movies. Like, can you believe that? Mrs. Robinson, you try to seduce me? It's
It's
crazy.
one that you can just use like whenever. You just got to take out Mrs. Robinson and put whoever's name in it, and then you can just deliver that one. And anyone who has any hint of what the movie's about knows where it's from.
Right, right.
What
I love it. I love it, bro.
What was yours?
Mine's is when he finally realizes that he wants to go after Elaine, and
Uh,
he's having the conversation with the parents, and he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna get married," and he's like, "Does she know that?" And they're all kind of like, so my favorite my favorite quote from that exchange is, "This whole idea sounds pretty half baked," and he's like, "Nah, it's completely baked."
yeah, yes.
Could- I'm telling you right now, bro, I could not stop the laugh. Like,
Because
uh,
he delivers it so deadpan. He's like, it's
yeah,
completely baked. And the best part is you're watching it, and the whole time you're listening to the back and forth with the parents, and you're like, that's Mr. Feeney.
yeah, yes.
like I spent my whole youth looking up to this man for giving me advice on the other side of a fence, and here he is, Ben Braddock's dad, telling him
I
you're
know.
half baked.
So and then like I said, so it's going back to like the main theme for me. Like once you have your mind set on something, you do it and nothing stops you, right?
Correct.
And I think that Ben, when he finally finds purpose, it makes the movie, I like, to me personally, it drives the movie even stronger because everybody is doing everything in their power to stop him, especially Mrs. Robinson, how literally she blames him for rape. She's like banning him from like dating her daughter. Like all the forces are against him.
And what's humorous about that, right, is one of the very first scenes in the beginning of the movie when she convinces him to drive her home, because allegedly the car was taken. She starts to try to seduce him by showing him a picture of her daughter, saying, would you like to see the portrait?
Right.
So
Right.
she's inviting him upstairs to Elaine's room, and introducing him basically to who Elaine is now, right? Because supposedly they kind of grew up together, but he hadn't seen her in a while.
Right.
And
Right.
so she's inviting that as almost an idea in his subconscious. And then, yeah, like wants to sabotage it. And everyone's trying to stop that relationship from happening. And for me, when I watched the movie a second time, it's kind of a little slower in the beginning up until he comes to the realization like this is what I want and this is the only
Right.
thing I'm going to do.
No, I'm telling you, and like for me, it picks up crazy speed because like I'm I'm so into it. Like I want to see him get to his goal, and it goes so far that literally she gets married, and it hasn't stopped him. And I'm
Now,
like, bro, like
the
this dude's
the only thing that's wild about that is So if you know your geography of California, right, that all there at the end happens in one day, where he like drives to Berkeley, finds out that she's not there, she's getting married in Santa Barbara. He turns around and drives all the way back down to Santa Barbara. They're hours apart.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, it's funny enough. Like, so you were watching the movie with your wife. I was watching it with my wife as well,
Mm.
and she says like, yeah, like the gas station guy, like he's like, yo, bro, you want gas or you're good? Like, where are you coming from? And I'm like, damn, it's true. Like, I guess I never realized until you just pointed that out. Like the distance, because he kept going on the bridge
Yep.
to signify where he's going to. But I guess I've only ever been to LA and San Diego, so I don't really know that part up there. So I never really understood how far he was driving, to be honest with you. Like, and I don't know if his car would have even made it
Well,
in one day.
so Berkeley is right in San Francisco,
Right, exactly.
and then Santa Barbara is just north of LA. So if you
So,
do, so it's like 6 hours difference.
damn, it's that much?
Yeah. If you do, I'm looking it up right now. If you do just San Fran to LA today, as it currently stands, 6 hours and 4 minutes. Now, Santa Barbara is like probably an hour north of Los Angeles, but you're talking like 5 hours, and he did that,
Right,
which means he drove 10 hours, which means he was either just five up, five back, and when you see him pop in, that was it. Like that's the only time he was ever there.
right.
But it's hard. I'm always hard pressed. Sometimes when I watch things, those are things that I always find because I know they want you to suspend belief in movies, but I'm always like, yeah, but that's far fetched.
But you see,
Like
this is
Clint went to school at UCLA, not UCal
right.
Berkeley.
See, you would notice that, not me. Like I told you, my geography with California wasn't that great to even spot that. But for me personally, that's why I told you at the beginning. Like my biggest issue was the age difference because they're so close to age, and the whole movie throws me off. I
Yeah,
swear, like
not something that I necessarily looked up before.
right. So, what's your favorite scene of the whole movie?
Um, my favorite scene is the end, honestly, because one, he's banging on the glass and he's yelling her name, Elaine, 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 and he's like wielding the cross to get everyone to step back, and then he barricades the doors, and you get that feeling like, all right, like he finally accomplished his goal. He took her away from Carl, and they're gonna live, happily ever after. And then they jump on the bus, right? And you hear Simon and Garfunkel start up,
Mm-hmm.
and their faces go from elation to like once again the central theme I think of the movie, like what's next? What are we doing?
The ending is definitely like one of the best scenes in this. It makes the whole movie. Seriously, like I can't even stress that enough. Like it's so worth it at the end. The payoff is worth it. Like I told you, when I first saw it, I had to stop midway through, and like now when I finished it, like and watching it more recently, I'm like, holy crap, no, like it's worth it to go to the end. But anyway, so my favorite scene is actually right before that when he confronts Mrs. Robinson at the end, and it's quick, but the electricity when he throws the clothes and he's questioning her, and Mrs. Robinson's demeanor calmly calls the cops. It's like, are you armed? No, he's not armed. Like it's what it like think about like back when you were like a kid, right? Like when you're arguing with somebody and they're like so calm and you're like at 100 and they're like at 0, it gets you even more pissed off. And like the way he plays it is just fantastic because of what they've been through. I love seeing that on screen too, because he went from being completely shy and oblivious to like in command, right? And like just throwing stuff around, like thinking that he's better than her. And he's like, nope, I'm one upping you. I'm still one upping you. Like that whole battle that they had was just amazing. Like that's one of my favorite scenes.
you know and I agree because like to your point, she was just even keel. She wasn't going to match his tone. She purposefully was just, I'm calling the cops. I'm picking up the phone. Hello, yes, 911. I want to report an intruder. Like was not gonna match him at one point, and it's funny, right? Because like I think especially you and I can relate. Like it's like when you have someone yelling at you, and you're just
Mm-hmm.
go ahead, I've got all day. Like I'm just gonna sit here, and the person gets more upset, like they're trying to prove something to you, and yeah, and like Ben just wasn't gonna have it, and then that's when he made that decision. Like he's running off and doing it.
Here's some random questions for you. Is there anything in this movie that you would change? Actors, scenes, anything at all? What do you think?
I would probably cut out, I think, the part where they go to the strip club and how uneasy Elaine is, and
Oh man.
like he was already being a real big jerk to her. I think that one is just that's such a step so far.
Yeah.
But like it makes sense in the way that it really pushed her away, but you can already tell that she was getting pretty uncomfortable. And then to take this poor girl into a strip club, because you're purposely trying to sabotage the date. Like, I just really felt for her in that moment, and I was
Me
like,
too.
dude, that's just like that's gut wrenching. And she has to like walk out of there crying, and they were front row. Like he puts her front row,
Front row. I know.
front row. Didn't hide her in the back to try to make her easy. Clearly staring at the girls, being like, "Oh, like look at this," like trying to play up that stereotype. And you could tell. I guess the whole point is like that he had remorse for doing
Yeah.
it, and that's when he really felt like a connection.
I think that he didn't even really want to do this because he kept his glasses on. If you noticed during the scene,
Yeah, like
and
he
yeah,
didn't really want to be. He didn't want anyone to notice him. If anyone was, I don't know if he was a big strip club frequenter. I mean, judging by his actions early on, he never gave you the impression that this was his regular hangout spot.
correct.
So it could have been his first time too. Honestly, he was probably just as uncomfortable as she was.
Right.
What was yours?
No, funny enough, I picked the same thing as you said. I actually
Yeah.
wrote it down. I googled like what are the worst first dates you could take somebody to, and all I can get like on Google was like your parents' house, a car dealership, a fast food place. I mean, like, damn, like the internet couldn't even catch up to The Graduate.
What are you taking someone on a first date to a car dealership? What are you doing there?
Bro, I swear, one of the first hits on Google was that.
What are
I
you
have no
like?
idea.
Hey, I need to pick up a lease. Do you want to come watch me do
Yeah, yeah, that's probably what it is.
it? That's great.
Right. And I'm just like you, bro. I even felt awkward. I'm like, wow, don't be a dick, bro.
Yeah,
Like you could just literally sit outside in your car and be an asshole.
but
Like,
isn't
don't
that
even
the
do that.
genius of the scene that 53 years later it still holds up? That like it still makes you feel that uncomfortable
Hundred
when you
percent.
when you watch it. Like as much as I would want to just not see it there, like that's a testament to the writing and the acting that you're like, wow, like this is uncomfortable even for me watching it.
Or even in real life, if you're gonna be like that, don't even go, bro.
Yeah,
Honestly.
like just
Like,
well, he's like forced into it, right? Like his parents corner him
yeah, but
to do
still,
it,
man.
and
Still.
it's his partner's daughter, right? That's what's lost. We haven't even touched on that. Like, I mean, this whole thing is he's having an affair with his dad's partner at a pretty what seems to be important law firm.
So let's talk about that then. So I wrote this one down. So why do you think, besides kind of like the obvious, right? Why do you think Mrs. Robinson is so dead set on not having Ben date Elaine? And then, like you said, she kind of teased him by showing her off right at the beginning, and the dad
I
too. They're pushing her towards him and like, yo, Ben, wait till Elaine arrives. Wait till Elaine arrives. The whole time you're getting teased throughout the whole damn movie, right? Like, why do you think that is?
I think when he decides to sleep with her, when he decides to sleep with Mrs. Robinson, I think in a way that's her confirmation for the type of person that he is. And, her biggest regret is that, right, that she got pregnant at a young age.
Right.
And I don't think she wants Elaine to go down the same path. And I think that's why
Interesting.
while yes, she dangled Elaine kind of in the beginning, I think as the affair had gone on, now you could argue that maybe she had general feelings for Ben, but I don't buy that because I don't think that was her first rodeo.
Right.
I think she just didn't want Elaine to follow the same path she did, which was get pregnant, have a kid early, don't have a career, be a stay at home mom, be the typical housewife, and be trapped and become bitter. Because Mrs. Robinson, she touches on it even right in the one of the first few scenes of the movie where she's like, did you know I'm an alcoholic? Right? Like, um, and that probably stems from just that feeling that she was never enough.
I like that. I never. I'll be honest with you. I didn't think about that. Like I completely forgot that she did mention that she did get pregnant at an early age.
Mhm.
But then, funny enough, in the movie, you're right. It comes back full circle because all his boys, the guy she gets married to, kept hinting at how much of a player the guy is. Remember, like that he was hooking up with the girls and like, oh, when's my turn? I think one of the guys said, if I remember correctly. You remember that?
Yeah, they do hint on that. Yeah, that one of the guys is like, "Oh, well, like when's it my turn?"
And then Mrs. Robinson is so dead set, but the guy she was with was probably freaking way worse of an asshole.
It's that classic case of you like marrying into a proper family, right? Like
Hmm. Hmm.
think about Wedding Crashers.
Yeah.
Bradley Cooper's character, right? Like Rachel McAdams is destined to marry this guy because he comes from, so and so's family and he's got the proper upbringing, but he's a huge douche.
Right.
Like
Right.
it turns out like he's way worse than Vince Vaughn's character. And it's kind of the similar thing here, right? Like yes, Ben slept with Mrs. Robinson, but he didn't, I think, do that because that's the type of person he necessarily is. That's just what felt right at the moment versus Carl, who's just gonna basically marry her, have a kid, so they're tied together for the rest of their life, and he's gonna go do whatever he wants to do. And that was kind of
Exactly.
like during that time period. And also, when you think about it, I mean, that's getting close to the summer of love, right? That idea of we can explore our sexual preferences and experiences and we don't have to be boxed into our parents generation, right, which was the greatest generation, the ones that fought in World War II. And that's kind of that rebellion you're seeing even in the movie. um,
Right.
you've got someone like Mrs. Robinson who, if you do the math on it, would have been born in the 20s, right? Would have come of age during World War II, and now she's trying to figure out where she fits. And you've got, Ben, who was a product of post World War II, and like he just doesn't want to necessarily, or Elaine, be told
Yeah.
by their parents what to do. And that's where you see that both of them rebel.
Why do you think Ben admitted to Elaine even before Mrs. Robinson, was gonna do it? Eventually, I knew she was, but
Guilt, because I think in the end, Ben realized that the affair, it was going to come to light, and I think he thought, hey, if I can get in front of it and kind of control the narrative, this will be a good thing.
right.
And I think he just felt guilt, because he definitely had developed feelings for Elaine, and he wanted to continue that relationship. But once again, like, right, he's not, your player. So like he would never be able to hide it. I think he would always have wanted to come clean.
So let's talk about the ending, right? Why did she leave? Wasn't she technically married? Why did she leave?
Well, I mean, I guess technically, I don't know. Did she sign the marriage certificate? I mean, we're both married.
I mean, we don't know, right? Like, I guess that's where
We
the
don't
movie
know.
leaves
It's
it.
not legal unless you put your signature to it. You can have all the ceremonies you want, but it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter in the court of law. I don't think, like I said, I think she didn't want to marry him, and she was doing what her parents wanted. And now remember that one of the reasons why she was even in that situation is right because her mom said that Ben raped her.
Yes.
And then Ben was like, no, like she seduced me, which we can argue back and forth if that's enough evidence to be like, okay, well, I love you now. Um, but I think she realized that, and she had seen enough from Carl. I just don't think she wanted to go through with it, and she felt like this was something that was forced upon her. Like I said, like, it's the '60s. She wanted to rebel, and this was her moment to get away. And maybe she didn't necessarily think she was going to marry Ben, but I can tell that by running, like, she definitely didn't want to be trapped in that life that she was about to be forced into.
It's not really expressed in the movie, but you get the feeling that her parents were really over managing her, all her steps, everything that she was doing. Um, and it kind of seemed like anything that she was doing that they were on top of, like, all right, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, and coaching her the entire time. And I guess when they realized what happened, I guess the father mostly to me was like, all right, never mind, you can't be with Ben. He's bad for you. Like, do this, you know?
Yeah, the father, who we always thought seemed so oblivious, turned out to be like one of the more sane people.
Right. Exactly. I don't know. How do you feel about the dad like biting his cigar? You as an aficionado like me, did you
I'm
notice that?
I'm not a biter. I know that's the thing. I mean, I've got the really nice stainless steel cutter, but it's so on point when he just comes home there that night and he's oblivious to what had been going on. And I love when he goes, you a scotch or bourbon, man? And he's like, bourbon. And he just pours the scotch anyway. He's just ignoring him, right? He's like, now, Ben, how we've known each other a while, right? You're like a son, right? And he's just not caring at all about Ben's feelings or what he has to say. And then he bites it off and he just spits it in the corner because he just could care less what anyone thinks about him.
um. So back to the two lovebirds. Do you think it worked out with them? Do you think it worked out?
No, I don't think it
Wow.
worked out.
Really? What? How
Yeah.
come? What? Why do you think that?
Um, because I think there would have been too much pressure on them to stay together. Now, I mean, remember, Ben admits his age is 20, so he's not even 21.
Right.
I mean, think about what you were like at 20. I mean,
I can't. I can't.
it's funny enough for me, right? Like, I'm with my wife, and I was with her when I was 20, but the person I was at 20 versus 31,
Right.
it's a huge difference. And when you think about like the searching that he mentions in the beginning and trying to find like what he's meant to do, and her to a similar point too, like she had just escaped a wedding that she was supposed to get married at and then runs off with another guy. I just don't see how they ended up together.
Do you think it's more of that awkward family reunion because eventually their families got to get together, right? Do you think it's because of that kind of pressure, or is it just like them just fading away because they're finding what they really want to do in life?
Well, so I mean, that's a good like question, right? Because that's something that will forever remain unresolved.
No, 100%.
Ben admits to having an affair to Elaine. Um, Mr. Robinson knows about the affair. Mrs.
Right,
Robinson has accused him of rape and basically also admitting to an affair because they're getting divorced. And it never comes back to Ben's parents, and figuring out because they're partners in a law firm. Like, what would have been the aftermath? You can only assume though that, like, I can't think the Braddocks would be too happy that their child was a part of breaking up a marriage and also is with the daughter of someone from the law firm who I'm sure that relationship is now strained.
right.
Maybe they would get together. I would have to assume though that maybe Mr. Robinson just moves on and does something else with his life, and
That's true.
maybe they just never cross paths afterwards. You can never tell how the divorce would have went and what happened after that. But it's fun to speculate.
I was gonna say, like, listen, if Mr. Robinson just went through with the divorce, right, then he's like single, like out there, like making his scotches, like with cigar. Like, I feel like maybe the parents, like Ben's parents, just get along with him and not visit Mrs. Robinson, so it doesn't be too awkward. But then I don't know. Like, I could foreshadow. You know what I could foreshadow for? 100%. Mrs. Robinson puts a restraining order on Ben. Like, all right,
Oh,
he did this, and
100%.
that.
There's a restraining order on Ben,
Yep.
and she's probably still trying to get some sort of, not, she can't get custody of her daughter because her
Yep.
daughter's, of age, but she's probably still in her ear, and I can say that they're probably trying to, there'd be a lot of picking sides
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would come to it.
I don't know about Elaine because Elaine seems like she's still trying to find herself. Um, I think to me, the whole point of the movie was Ben finding himself, and I think that if Elaine became his life, that I think he would have managed, and I think he would have been okay, and I think that he would have leaned on her. Now, that awkwardness with the whole parent situation would have been tough, take it
Unless
from
they
us.
just completely cut ties with their parents and decide
Yeah,
maybe heal it down the road.
yeah,
Probably. I just
yeah.
I'm a contrarian, so I don't always want to think that every movie is always a happy ending. I prefer things that leave much more to be thought about instead of
Oh,
trying to wrap everything up in a little bow.
no, no. I look, listen. I agree. I think that like I told you, I think this ending is phenomenal, and
Yep.
like that's why the director won the best, best director and like the Academy Award. He won the Oscar for it, and I think it's because of this scene, because of the ending, like the fact that he left it open ended, the fact that like everything literally went to shit for Mrs. Robinson. Her daughter's gone, marriage is gone, but and then they stare off into space, like, all right, what do we do now? Like, I think that's phenomenal. Like,
I'm rewatching the ending here too, by the way, and the part where he grabs the cross and he's like waving it, and
yeah,
there's like 5 or 6 guys that are like this one guy looks like a strength and conditioning coach for a college football team, like the get back guy. Like he's got his arms out, he's squatting down, he's like holding everyone back because as if they can't go attack the guy wielding a cross.
I'm, I'm currently fast forwarding it to her right now. I'm almost there right now. Oh my god.
Like it almost reminds you of Indiana Jones, right? When he picks up any flaming stick because he's got snakes around him,
Yes,
waving it
yes.
frantically. Like this will ward off anything that's trying to get to me.
Before before we name our MVP, bro, what did you think about his landlord? Like, what the hell is up with that guy? Why do you have such a problem?
I love the landlord. I love it so much. This guy, he wants nothing to do with anything. He runs a real tight ship. We've always been managed by somebody who, like, there's no leaks. It's quiet.
Right.
There's nothing going on. Listen, he gets stuff done. Like this guy wants what he wants.
Honestly, I would have just took more money from Ben. Like, all right, you know what? You make a lot of ruckus, but if you pay me some more dough, maybe I'll let you
I don't
stay.
think the guy doesn't want problems, man. That's what you get when you're running a boarding house. He doesn't want those people there. He doesn't want to invite any hippies into his boarding house, right?
Exactly.
The '60s, man. It was the Grateful Dead up there. Jefferson Airplane. Like that's not what this guy's about. This guy's a hard line. Like it's my way or the highway. You're not bringing that around here.
Well, I'm glad we shouted him out. So then, all right, brother. So it's time. Who is your Arturo Fuentes MVP for this movie?
Mr. Robinson.
Oh, no way!
I
Wow.
I didn't know who it was going to be in the beginning, so I went in with an open mind. And you watch
Okay.
the movie again, and like he's the only guy who was just like, "This is crazy." Like he's the only one that like seemed sane, right? He's like, "Stop having an affair with my wife and don't marry
Right.
my daughter," right?
Right.
Everyone else is trying to normalize the behavior, and he's like, "No, none of you all are normal."
Right. No, and he goes about his life.
And yeah, I mean, he's just doing his thing. Yep, you get introduced to him, and you're like, well, this guy's like your stereotypical absentee, like I'm not around. But I think he generally did care, and I think he did know that what he was doing crumbled the world around him. You kind of feel for the guy at the end.
I gotta give it to you. You're right. I didn't think about it that way. But now that you mention it, it's true. It's like Ben's parents are like they're way too much. They're
They're
way too much.
they're today's helicopter parent, right? Like they're look at my boy,
Right.
look what he can do. In the beginning, they're talking about all of his achievements from his college yearbook. Like they busted that out. That's their pride and joy, and they're so over the top. And then you have Mr. Robinson and Mrs. Robinson, they're absent. What appears to be mostly absent from Elaine's wife. I mean, I think Mrs. Robinson has quite the attachment to Elaine because she was very young, so they're kind of bonded like that. But they come across as your typical suburban family. But
Right.
Mr. Robinson has real problems. His marriage is dissolved. His daughter's making decisions that he can't comprehend. And he's the one person who he goes up there to Berkeley to confront Ben um, and just to call it what it is. Like, this is just batshit crazy.
But I'll give it to him though, because listen, he's a caring father, and he did think that Ben was what was best for his daughter, at least to try to get them to hook up. I like that. I gotta give it to him.
Correct. You?
I thought about this a lot as well. I landed on Dustin Hoffman as an actor, not any character in the movie, but him as an
Interesting.
actor.
Okay.
Yeah, no, for real. First time I ever picked an actor itself, but I gotta tell you, like watching movies like Rain Man, or and stuff like that he's been in, like his portrayal of awkwardness, the looks he give, like you could tell this guy's like a masterclass actor. Like he's great, and his range is, to me, it's top notch. I really do appreciate him a lot more the more I've watched this film, because of what he brings to screen. Like when we mentioned before, like we can only think of one person who can play him, probably Michael Cera, probably, right?
Right.
But even though I see him as too old for this movie, he's so great at it, man. Like bringing that boyish like look to the camera, and just like playing off of like that awkwardness. It's just great to see. It's phenomenal. I got to give it to him.
I'm starting to kind of burn through his filmography here real quick. And like his role in Meet the Fockers,
Yeah, exactly. As the dad, yeah,
his role in Hook, right? Where
bro. I didn't even recognize him in that. I
Yep.
never knew it was even him.
And you're right about Rain Man, and it's funny because when you were talking about in the beginning like that awkwardness,
Yeah,
that's what I went straight to was his role in Rain Man. Like he just nails that. Um, I mean, it is. It's incredible. It takes a lot of effort to be that convincing. As an actor. So I don't hate it.
no, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, bro.
It's a hard one, for sure. This movie because it's not like you got a lot of characters to work with.
Exactly. No, I know that. I mean, shout outs to Anne, Mrs. Robinson. Yo, all time performance. I gotta say that. But
Mhm.
like Dustin Hoffman, man, he just takes it for me. He just takes it for me, bro.
Okay.
Any like last minute shout outs you want to do, or any last minute plugs?
Last minute plugs. Yeah, you should have me on to do Dirty Dancing. You won't regret it.
All right, done. Say no more. It's in the books. You heard it here first. Thank you, Jake, for joining us, brother.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, man. We'll catch you on Dirty Dancing. And this has been a beautiful film. See ya.